here we go. I'm also taking this stuff we're doing, and I'm actually developing it. I'll probably be using it when I go overseas for some of these pastors. I'm teaching a lot of pastors, and the pastors need these concepts of stewardship that we've been dealing with. And we started last week. I'll just do a review. Um, and what I've done is I kind of looked at this book. This book right here. This is actually kind of a book that was written 30 years ago. It's a little bit, I don't want to say outdated, but I think we've just come further in our understanding of biblical leadership than because he was kind of like the pioneer, this John Maxwell fella. And of course, he's rewritten the book, and there's so much out there. So what I did is I kind of took it, and I thought we'd do 3 weeks of of the concepts in this book, but I'm kind of bringing them more current. And today we're going to cover lead yourself. Next week we'll talk about leading others, and then the third week we'll talk about developing leaders that lead others. So it'll kind of crisscross into what we're talking about stewarding. It all falls into discipleship. So, for the sake of our understanding, I'm almost say discipleship and leadership development is the same thing. Uh, and so I just want to, a lot of this is that we're talking about is going to bring an awareness to your life. And as you are developing yourself, you're looking at others that come into proximity to you, that come around you, because leaders always draw other people. And that's just a natural law. You look around and you say who's following you. That will tell you the influence of your leadership. And it's not so much that you're just this strong, dynamic fella, but it's the idea that people are attracted to people that are serving others, that number one have vision, others that are serving others, and so this is what draws people. It creates almost like whenever I'm behind an 18 wheeler with my motorcycle, it sucks me right behind it. It's a big thing that's moving. And that's what our lives look like. When our lives are moving, we create momentum, and it just draws in others with us. So leadership is really uh, it's not that complicated, but what happens is when your character is not right, you got a mess, because a lot of people lead through being charismatic people, and that's a very dangerous thing if you don't have character. So that's one of the things I want to talk about today. Um, we talked last week about solid ground, and so before I say that, let me make I want to make one statement, and actually two statements. And we're going to keep this time together really simple, because I want y'all to grasp the concept rather than just trying to download a bunch of information to you. Um, but stewardship. Okay, we've been covering stewardship for about a month, and I've enjoyed it. I don't know about you guys, but I just as I'm going into this, it's kind of building my life, and it's showing me what it's showing me where I need to build and where increase. But stewardship asks the questions, what am I doing with what God's entrusted with me? Okay. So that sort of summarizes everything we've been talking about for the last month. What am I doing with what God has given me? Okay. And so leadership asks the question, what am I doing with the people that God has entrusted to me? Okay. And you guys might ask the question, well, I don't really have like people follow me. I don't really have a group. I'm not really necessarily an appointed point person in any particular thing right now. But that does not necessarily mean that you're not a leader. It means that you may be someone that is in motion to arrive to that place. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today is what am I doing with the people that God has entrusted? That's kind of that's where we're going with the whole thing. Um, so really we're talking about, if I could put this simply, stewarding your influence. Okay. because leadership is really about influence, and so it's stewarding the influence that you have uh, with others. And I'm reflecting more and more on that every day because I get like I told you, I got a call, uh, a guy looking for me. He said, I've been looking for you, Sonny, for you for 30 years. He said, you helped, you were there when my dad passed, and you prayed with us, and then you challenged me and asked me if I was serving God. And he said that influenced me in such a way that I turned and I began to serve God, and I had to find you to tell you that. And I have people call me all the time because of the influence the Lord has given me. It's not because I'm a pastor, it's the person that I am pastoring is a job. Pastoring is not the influence. The influence is the person. So with that said, uh, uh, yeah, so we'll say this again. Leadership is the stewardship of influence for the development, and I'll put these notes up later. Leadership is the stewardship of influence for the benefit and development of others. In other words, you're stewarding influence because you want to see others grow and develop. That's our whole deal behind leadership. It's not so that we can, be the great minister, the great warrior, the great businessman. It's that we always are looking at discipling, building others, and serving others. And when that becomes your central heartbeat, you will not be able to escape people. They will hunt you down day and night to get what you're giving them. And that's what a lot of people meet. They try to say, oh, it's because I'm a good singer, I'm a good preacher, I can play, I can run good business models and all that. That's just a gift. That's not really true leadership. Okay, so we talked about last week, and I want to just go over this real quickly, the law of the lid. We talked about that last week. Um, Leadership ability determines the person's level of effectiveness. Now, this is something I didn't mention last week that I wanted to say that again. I cannot consistently lead others beyond the areas where I refuse to grow myself. Let that sink in for a minute. Okay, this is really important because even at my age of 70 years old, I've been in the ministry for 40 years. I've been in professional, I'm a dad, I've got family life, done just countless things, missions, but still, I want to talk about today, how do you lead yourself? And this is not just stewarding what I got. I want to talk about character. This thing of character. And if you're a Christian, God is always bringing you to another level of growth, personal growth. And it usually involves um, a little bit of challenge. You don't go to the next level, and it's just like walking stairs. God allows you to encounter friction, headwinds. You come face to face with yourself, and you either got to decide, I'm going to go to the next level, and usually it's a character issue. And I'm saying that this is kind of fresh for me. So I'm a little bit raw right now because last couple of weeks the Lord's brought me through some stuff and I'm like, wow. I thought this was like cruising now that you're 70 years old. He's like, no, you got to grow. So you guys that are married, you got a different set of and now Russ and you with children, there's a different demand. A guy, you and Ethan have both stepped into professional work now, so now there's new demands and there's new personal confrontations in the marketplace. You've got all these different, you run into good people, you're running into people you'd like to stay away from. You got all these new variables plus coming home and being a family man. So those are, um, so I'll say it like this: but before leadership is about managing other people, we have to learn to manage ourselves. So if God is working on you about something, you have to let Him bring you through the process. Um, You have to develop self-awareness, emotional maturity, discipline, competence, humility. Humility is huge. I can really tell where a person's at personally by their level of humility. If someone is right and they have, if I'm confronting someone at Praise Church and there's an issue there, and I'm confronting them, I says, you're absolutely all right, but are you willing to take the low road on this one? And when they go, yeah, yeah, I am, and I said, well, there's the growth. It's not because you are more right than the other person. Whenever we walk in places of humility, and you guys learn that from your marriage. You have to learn that every day, right? Yeah. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about demonstrating love through humility. Spiritual depth. Spiritual depth again, letting God sort of help you, giving you grace. That's another thing that's part of my inner growth is not the fact that I have obtained, it's the fact that I let God bring me to the next place through his grace. Because I look at something, I'm like, God, I'm ready to throw the towel. I'm tired. This is enough, man. I'm tired of the whole deal of you bringing me through your Holy Ghost discipleship thing. Can I just have a week off? And the Lord is just like, I got grace. Take my grace and we'll get through this. And I'm learning his grace better and better. The other thing is willingness to learn. So the example I want to give for us is a biblical example is, Moses had the calling to lead the children of Israel out of out of Egypt when he was 40 years of age. Okay, and but he didn't have the capacity to do that yet. He was, you know the story. I'll just give you a brief synopsis. He ends up, getting all fired up about doing this. He ends up going out and challenging all of the Israelites, and he ends up killing somebody, to deliver an Israelite from an Egyptian taskmaster. He kills the guy, buries him in the sand, then runs for his life. So there's God's deliverer, right? 40 years of age, got the call to deliver, and he is totally not equipped or prepared. His character is not there. So he spends the next years, actually the next 40 years, uh, in the wilderness, married to Zipporah, working under his father Jethro, at the Mount Sinai, tending sheep. Of course, it wasn't known as Mount Sinai at the Mount Sinai we know at the time. It wasn't until God showed up that it became that Mount Sinai. So, and then finally, he returns 40 years later. His character is now formed. He can now not only deliver a nation, a population of almost 1 million plus people, but he can actually shepherd those people in the wilderness. He had the church in the wilderness. He couldn't do that before. So, all that to say is, Moses had a lid, and God raised the lid level so that he could do the job that he wanted to do. And so I want you to see a pattern here that you may have something inside of you that hasn't happened yet. You know that there's something more than what you've got. And the Lord but God can't let you do it because he's got to continue the character. The lid has to be raised. The character in us has to be developed. I'm dealing with my daughter on that. We actually had an amazing call last night, and she's, breaking in some areas, and she said, "Dad, I know that I'm just called for something so, I just know it's out there." And I said, "Yep, law of the lid. You're not ready yet. It's coming." And I think all of us have that little thing inside of us that knows that there's something more that God wants us to do. So we're getting ready for it. And I believe that when we move in that, others will follow. And that's the influence of a changed life. That's a good word there. Influence of a changed life. When your life is changing, other people see it, they see your victory, they see your growth, and they say, I want in. So that's your influence right there. Not that you're Mr. Personality, right? Okay. So So we're gonna have a little discussion on this. We got time, but let me give you these other two principles, and we could do that principle of the lid each week. But I just wanted to kind of we're trying to lift the lid on these next 3 weeks. I want to pinpoint things in our lives that we might say, okay, at least the awareness of where I need to move the lid. Uh, the second law that we're going to talk about is the law of solid ground, and that's trust. Trust is the foundation of leadership. So the next two, these I got two more laws I want to talk about real briefly, and we're going to use King David as the character example. So talent can attract people, but character determines whether they can continue to trust you. Okay. When I first started Praise Church, people were piling into the little trailers. Man, we had 300 people coming there. I said, man, I was really doing more of the music at the time, and I was a younger guy, and I was kind of little still kind of big. And everybody said, we got to come to hear that. But nobody trusted. They just wanted to come see some talent, right? And plus I was, preaching, hallelujah, fire, and everybody, new preacher on the block. But the character of a person determines whether people can continue to trust you. You see, King David started, if you remember the story, he started in Saul's backyard. He was a shepherd, and he was anointed to be king, but that king destination didn't happen till years later. He had to go through all this thing where he was rejected by his father-in-law. He was hunted down. He actually buddied up with Achish and the people of the Philistines. He actually was running with the Philistines. He was in Ziklag. All of his wives got captured. The men wanted to kill him. I mean, this guy went through a series in a life of just. But what happened is all of the people of Israel watched him through all of his trials. So when it finally came time for them to anoint him king, he earned their trust because he went through each trial and each thing that he went through. And so all that to say is that, while the formation is happening in your life, God has got those in proximity that's watching you, your family, your church family, your extended family, your friends, your work people. They're watching you to watch what you do with what life hands you. Does that make sense? So that's the ground that we walk on. And that's really the reason why you guys walk with me today. You've watched me through the years and you say, well, I mean, I don't pass every test, but you say, hey, we trust this guy. He's not out there stealing money or running off with people. He's not trying to make a name for himself. And so you watch and you build trust. That's your platform. That's your solid ground. Um, so can people trust your word, your motives, your private behavior, your handling of money? Each one of those is really a topic we could go off on. The treatment of people who cannot benefit you. Are you helping somebody that really doesn't have any meaning to, that can't repay a favor? And what do you do? Of course, we preach this all the time. What do you do when nobody's watching? That's the tough one. That's the real tough one. So that's what we call the law of solid ground. All this is, it does correlate and correspond with stewardship we talked about, but now I'm bringing it to a more of a leadership level. Okay. Yeah. And then I think the final one is the law of process, and that's easy. Just that leaderships develops daily, not in a day. This is a long process. We just talked about David. He went from shepherd to musician to warrior to servant, fugitive, leader, and then finally to king. So there was a progression in the process. A lion prepared him for Goliath. Goliath prepared him for national leadership. Serving Saul taught him about authority. The wilderness taught him endurance, and leading distress and discouragement taught him how to develop people. And kind of Moses, we saw the same thing with Moses. So I guess one thing we're doing good, still doing good on time is how to trust God's timing. So this is a word for you guys as well as the older guys. Really, Rusty, I should have our entire men's squad in on this teaching, don't you think? This is pretty good teaching. Uh, but don't despise the season that you're presently in. Okay. And as a younger, having been a younger man myself, and still, I'm very much an aggressive person. So I can be a very impatient person in saying, I can't wait to get to the next season. I can't wait to get to the next place. Well, this season that you're in is probably one of the most important seasons of your life. So treat every season that you're in that it's an important time and don't rush to get through it. Let God's grace bring you through to the next season. And the next question would be, what is God developing in me now that I will need later? See, these are awareness questions, in your job site, in your marriage, raising your children. Um, I want to commend you, man, as well as Brother Rusty, that you guys have served well. Everything. That's why I've brought you men into this Zoom meeting because you guys have been faithful and with little things. Been given little tasks, sometimes bigger tasks, but you're always there. You're very responsible. So I believe God's going to give you more and more. And same for me. I'm being stewarding things that He's given me, and He's going to give me more. Um, so we talked about last week. Let's move into our discussion, and I think we got about 15 minutes left. Um, what is one? Okay, we talked about last week about what we thought about uh, where you thought your lid would be. One area where you need to grow. We talked about that last week. Um, let me ask you a question. Let me ask this question then. What what is one lesson that you believe your present season is teaching you? And Ethan, since you came on first, I'm gonna let you start the discussion here.
Um, that was all really, really good. Uh, let's see, what lesson am I being taught in this current season? One thing that like me and Grace have talked about a lot lately is just like having to have an unconditional and unwavering trust in God, just like you said, and just like the timing, like trust in God's timing and not ours. Um, I feel like right now is the first time, not the first time, but it's like it's sticking out to me uh very much of just like I have to let go of it and just trust in the Lord and his timing. Um and while that's really uncomfortable right now, like it always is, um I can definitely see like where this is going and where this is leading and what I can and what I am learning through this whole period. But yeah.
So your answer is that in the process that one of the lessons is just letting go of things and trusting the Lord
Hmm.
with situations that are difficult. Yeah, I think that's a lifelong pursuit there. Good,
Oh
good.
yeah.
Rustin, what have you got?
Yeah, I just it's a pretty broad one, so I'll be short with it, but just patience in in everyday life, I mean, I know what I'm like whenever I'm impatient and I'll say hot-headed or just, impulsive and the reaction that comes from that, and then I know how it is whenever I'm patient and I sit back and uh kind of a little bit tying in with trust too, like how Ethan was saying, but I think that all has it. Because I mean, it ties in directly with patient. I mean, with trust is just being trusting that in this waiting time and in this time of whatever that I have to be uh, patient and wait, but also, like a good mix between moving, making that step, and also knowing, when God's saying it might not be time yet. You know what I mean? But like, and then not just in, I guess it's all in a spiritual way, but also not in just so much of a spiritual way, just like being patient with my young kids that, that I was once a young kid. So it's like learning how not to get a short temper with them and take every moment and use it as a learning lesson instead of taking it as a bash session. You know what I mean? It's just trying to be wise and show them somebody that I want them to uh, look for one day in a husband or in their friends or whatever. And I want to be that rock for them. Especially God's been showing me that being the only man in my household is just trying to be a strong rock for them
Mm-hmm.
and embody patience. And they love the fruits of the spirit in general. We always sing about the fruits of the spirit, and you know, it's one of the fruits of the spirit, patience. So
That's good, Russ.
it's just the one sticking out the most right now.
Raising three girls, huh? God bless you.
Yeah, can you hear him back there?
Amen. Guy, what's your uh, lesson that you believe the Lord is dealing with you, or the process in this season of your life?
I would honestly say like kind of like the same thing Ethan said with just how to trust him and like just rely on him more. Like especially right now with going into a job, starting to feel like okay, I got this many responsibilities, and you know there are times where I got to catch myself where I'm thinking about, well, dang, what if this goes wrong? And it can be overwhelming sometimes when you just start thinking about, well, if this one thing happens and this could happen and this and this and then, you can almost start to spiral a little bit. But I just feel like right now it's just learning more and more. It's like I just really need to trust in God and just leave all that stuff and not dwell on it and just trust God with any situation He puts me in.
Yeah. Good, good, good. Brother Rusty, why don't you comment, and you can share what your season's about, and just share some thoughts on what was said.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Uh, I'm gonna have to say, with the time I'm in, I guess the thing that's coming to my mind most of all is time. I don't know if that makes sense to the younger guys, but you know, I got out of addiction and was saved in '96. Here I am 30 years later, and it's like, I put over 30 years into plant work. I just feel like God's saying, "All right, when's when's that gonna be enough?" Like, uh, and I know I have responsibilities. I have financial commitments. I have, but I just feel like I'm reminded of the scripture. Where your heart is, where your money is, basically is where your heart is, and probably more valuable than money is where your time is what I'm feeling. Uh,
Wow.
where your time is where your heart is. So uh, I just feel like God's telling me to be more, basically, be more purposeful with my time. I've always said with the kids growing up, like I'm not going to save every dollar and every dime. We're gonna live our life because we're not guaranteed our next day. But then now looking back, I'm like, well, I'd paid off all my bills. had I had I budged a little bit on that saying, and so I don't want to dwell in the past, and I think up to this point it's been a great life, but I just feel like I'm what's speaking to my spirit is it's we don't have enough of it to waste time, so we need to be really really thinking about and purposeful of where we spend our time and what we spend our time doing. My time doing. That's what I was getting. I did want to comment over some stuff you said about where you was talking about your personal growth and how humility, and it reminded me of this verse in Hebrews. I'll just read it for y'all. Let's see. Hebrews 13. I'm sorry. Yeah, 13:17. Obey your spiritual leaders and do what they say. Their work is to watch over you, over your souls, and they are accountable. And they are accountable to God. And I think that kind of goes along with your being humble, submit. You know, if we can't come under authority, then how are we expected to disciple others and to continue that framework of authority that God has established? And you did say something earlier about, I forget how you said it, but you're talking about seasons where you felt like you got in seasons where you wanted to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me, I don't know if you ever seen like the guys online, they'll say, I am ready for God to test me in being able to handle a lot of money. They're like, I'm done with the trials. I'm done with the tribulations. I'm done with all the other tests, Lord. Test me with a lot of money, and I guarantee I'll be faithful. And just when you said that, it kind of reminded me. I know it was more of a laugh. It really wasn't on topic, but yeah, I think y'all are all right on track with what y'all saying. I mean, it's always a struggle. You know, sometimes we get blinded by life and events in life. We kind of lean on the arm of the flesh instead of trusting in God, like y'all are saying. God's dealing with y'all to be able to work on trusting Him and patience. Oh Lord, I all these things y'all are saying. I think these are all things we'll be trying to conquer. You know, deal with till we meet the Lord. You know, so I think we all kind of on the same page. You know.
Awesome, Rusty. Good. All great, good feedback. We got about a minute and 30 seconds left, and I'm going to make just a couple of comments. I think it's good. Are y'all okay with everything we're talking about? I love this. You know, I just feel like we're building and you know, and it takes a while if we keep talking up and keep becoming intentional with these ideas we're talking about. I think it becomes part of us. I want to leave two questions, and I'll say a quick prayer, say goodbye. Um, which is more dangerous? You can think about this: a leader who lacks ability, or a highly gifted leader who lacks character. Think about that one. A leader who lacks ability, or a gifted leader who lacks character. And that would be a great discussion question. Maybe we can talk about that next time. And if God, the second thing to think about, if God doubled your influence tomorrow, would your present character and disciplines be able to carry it? It's like you just said with the money, Rusty. It's like if God dumped $1 million on you, would you be able to steward it? Might destroy you, right? It's that same thing if he all of a sudden developed your responsibility. Um, yeah. Okay. I think we are at the end, guys. So, Father, in the name